And this is where people go wrong. Like literally, I tell my team the worst cancellation we ever see is a guy who's getting a 8 or a 9 or a 10 times return on ad spend.
Yeah.
Their cost of goods and their margins are about 50%. So they're making about a 400% return on investment, and they want to cancel because it's not enough.
You're listening to the Foundation Dental Podcast, strategic conversations for dentists and leaders building long-term value in dentistry. I'm Dr. Jim Arnold. Let's get into today's conversation. Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jim Arnold, and today's guest is someone I've been around quite a bit over the past few years, and I've got to say that every time I go to one of the events, it's a completely different level. Whether it's the Closing Institute or Progressive Dental Marketing, the education is always phenomenal. The guests are world-class, and these guys get people like Tony Robbins, Tom Brady, 50 Cent, Ray Lewis, and that's just like over the past year. So it's always fun to go to these events. And, the most impressive thing, though, is really the level of dentists and vendors in the room. It's a group of people who are all really building stuff at a high level. And I was just with them a couple of weeks ago in Vegas at the Closing Institute Full Arch Boot Camp. And that whole notion was reinforced again at the Fountain Blue, which was an amazing property. But Gerritt spent the last 16 years, I think, not just in marketing, but designing systems that work with some of the highest producing implant practices in the country. Gerritt, I've got a lot of respect for what you've built and how you think, and I'm really excited for the conversation today. So welcome to the show, man.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. And nice to see you back from Vegas. And it was great seeing you out there with your wife. And I know that was the first time in 25 years she's been out there with you on the road. And it seems like you're traveling every week. So it was nice to get your attention out there, and love having you out and always supporting the events. And I know a lot of the vendors and partners love collaborating with you. So thanks for having me on.
Hey, man, it was my pleasure to be out there. I appreciated the invite. And, like I said, it's always a good time. And yeah, it's good to see you here. And I appreciate you spending a little time with me. But hey, I've got a million questions to ask you. We could go for 3 hours, I'm sure, but I better just kind of jump into it. But
let's go.
You spend a lot of time around high performers, whether they're high performing dentists or, some of these celebrities that I mentioned. And, you've built something at a really high level. And that's why you're rubbing shoulders with such incredible people. But outside of all of that, like, what are you actually enjoying most about your life right now? I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on, but what do you really love most about your life?
The best thing that I love is, out of all of it, like, man, I love when I do the big events. I bring my kids in and they get to see it, and they're like, oh, my kids, they fill out this little thing at school. I've got a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Well, the 3 is almost 4, the 1's almost 2. And, in class, they say, what does your daddy do? And my daughter wrote, he's a doctor. And I said, sweetie, I'm not a doctor. I said, and then I played the song with Drake. I said, I'm a rock star, not a doctor. So she starts loving it. But she knows I work with doctors, and she goes, these doctors are cool. And man, I honestly, I love constantly pushing for new opportunities to think outside the box, pull off events, pull off new partnerships. That's really what drives me more than anything. And then, seeing my kids and their reaction to some of it. When I play a video of me, getting rowdy on stage or something like that, that gets the most satisfaction for me right now. But love the events and love the energy behind it, and really love seeing the teams come together and that energy, man, I just feed off of it. I think that's the most enjoyable thing for me, is the energy from everyone that gets involved with those programs. It's a lot of fun.
Well, I think that the audience really mirrors your energy. I mean, you get up there and you bring it every time. Everybody just gets into it, and that makes it fun, keeps it engaging. And a lot of that is just the audience that you attract to. You're not attracting dentists who are just kind of hanging out and, not really focused on growth. You're attracting the men and women who really want to do things at a high level. So that's got to impact your energy. And then that, it's just like this full loop, which I really enjoy.
Whenever you do an event, Jim, you never know if anybody's gonna show up, number 1. You always hope. It doesn't matter how many of these you do, you're always worried the night before. It's like, "Are all these people actually gonna show up?" And then you have, TSA and all these things, so you're always thinking, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness." And remember,
Yeah.
we've been doing these events for 10 plus years. I mean, we used to do events with 5 people, 6 people in it. Like, I can remember one time, my first international event, I felt like you, Jim. I was like, I'm an international speaker, you know? I'm like, I'm at Jim Arnold's level now. I flew to Canada, and I was like, this was my first shot. And Bart said, "Hey, you're running this whole event yourself." And I was like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Where's the roster?" And I got the roster, and there were 7 people on it in a basement in Toronto. And I said, well, you know, the cool part is when I went up there, I was like, yes, I'm an international speaker. But 2 days with 7 people, it was a great course. We had a great turnout. We actually did some phenomenal. A lot of those guys are still clients today. You know, these events used to be 7 people, 10 people, 15 people. Last year with Tony Robbins, we had over 2,000 in them. And I'll tell you what changed it is right after COVID, we started doing the events and we started bringing music into it and things like that. And that's really when I think the energy level stepped up a lot. Tony Robbins is big with that. If you ever been to a Tony Robbins event, I started going to those years ago. And that's one of the biggest things is he integrates a lot of nostalgic music and different things to take people out of their comfort zone a little bit. And there's always the naysayers in the back that are like, this is weird, this is lame, but you know, the numbers don't lie, right? So
Oh,
it
man.
it does help. People wanna have fun, man. They wanna grow, they wanna
Seriously.
have fun.
Hey, Tony's always been all about change your state, and I know that he's very intentional about that, getting people off their feet and all the energy. And I mean, you guys do a lot of the same things. I mean, you've really created something special. And I mean, it's interesting thinking about you going back to that beginning, 7 people in a room. And it's kind of cool because, over the last 25, 30 years, like I've been very involved in kind of the dental education space. And I used to be involved with groups that, we'd put on an event for 1,000 people, or 200 people or 20 people or 10 people. And, there's value in all of those things. And, the energy from a big group, there's something about that just, it's amazing to be in that environment. I know you really thrive on that, but I love the fact that you started in that smaller group environment because that's kind of what I've gone back to with my events. I love when you got 10 or 15 people in the room and you can go deep. You can really talk about the stuff that matters and you get beyond that surface stuff that sometimes is hard to get past in a bigger room.
100%. I mean, and I think what it boils down to, Jim, is you can't go away from what got you to where you are today.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people, as they grow, they think they got to reinvent themselves completely or do things completely different.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to go back to basics.
Yeah.
And as the events grew bigger, one of the things that when Bart and I got this thing going, it used to be, very small numbers, one-on-one. So, I would book Bart. Bart would say, "Hey, we're going to hit up this market." And, Bart was running multiple jobs at the same time. He was a distributor for Millennium Dental Technologies. He was selling lasers. A lot of people don't know that. Like they see us as
Forgot about that. Yeah.
it's just full arch. Bart calls me up and he says, and I came from the finance world. So I'm like, my business is just crumbling. I had some success right out of college and then it all just like fell off a cliff. And Bart and I are best friends from high school. And he says, "Hey, come take a look at this. I'm starting to do this with my dad. He just put laser technology into his practice. And I think there's something here." And I go, "Bart, the economy's crashing. Lasers?" I'm like, what are you talking about? Star Trek? Like what's going on? He says, "No, it's all about saving teeth and health and all this stuff." And I'm like, "All right, it sounds interesting." I'm like, "Is there any money in it? Because I'm broke and I need something, because I got to figure out which direction I'm going to go into." And my dad told me, he says, because my dad ended up having a business. He left that business and ended up going to work as an architect for the government. My dad said, "Just go take a job, because of the economy or because of this, because you could give 20, 30 years away to a job that gets you nowhere." He goes, "You go into business, you take a gamble on yourself. One deal can give you what you make in a year." So I kind of stayed true to that. So I worked jobs in the evening as Bart and I were getting this going. And, I would work part-time jobs with a guy, with a degree of mine. It took a lot of humbling to do some of the hourly wage jobs that I did in the night just to make ends meet. And meanwhile, during the day, I'd be brainstorming with Bart. And Bart would say, "Hey, we're gonna work with these doctors with lasers." And I'm like, "All right, let's go to 5 offices. Let's see what it works." So I'd book them. And Bart takes me in, and I'll never forget it. It's like the scene from the movie Wolf of Wall Street, where he's in the diner, and I go, because Bart's starting to make some money. And I go, how much money did you make last month? And I'm like, you show me that, I quit everything and I come work for you. It was just like that. So literally, we would call on these offices that had just put in this new technology, and we'd go in there and we'd say, we can specialize in treatment planning and helping you integrate this new tech that you just spent $90,000 or $100,000 on. And keep in mind, this is in the heart of the Great Recession.
Right, right.
So then it spawned from that. I would reach out to offices and book Bart. So Bart would fly to city by city every other week, and I'd book him appointments. And then he'd go in and meet with doctors about getting more active with that technology so they could save more teeth and do more full mouth reconstructions in the process. So it really kind of led into the full mouth world even before we got into implants. For years, people made fun of us in implants, but the key here is sometimes you got to go back to your roots. Like,
Yeah.
smaller programs, we're now starting to integrate more smaller programs. We just launched a platinum program with our
Nice.
biggest clients. We just had them down in the Bahamas. We had a group of about 25 of them, some of our biggest clients. And you hit the nail on the head, Jim. You got to have those intimate groups too, because that's where the relationships really get fostered. And, those are the things that got us here today. And those are things now we've got to implement to go to the next level.
I love that. I really love that. Getting back to your roots, so to speak. And, just going back to that first conversation with him, though, I mean, you thought he was crazy, didn't you? You're like, what the hell? It's a Great Recession, and these are high ticket items. Like, what are you doing? I mean, like, what actually kept you in the conversation? Other
We
than
were both
your
we
friend?
were both trying to find anything that would stick at that
Okay.
stage in our careers.
Yeah.
So,
Fair.
Bart was always the entrepreneur. I went to University of Miami. He took off, and and keep in mind, Bart's got two sisters that are dentists. His other sister's attorney, and let's just say, and Bart will tell you on stage, he wasn't the best student. He liked to have a little fun. So Bart and I, our first project, first event we ever did was in health class. We planned his 16th birthday party. This was before social.
Hey.
You ever saw the movie Project X?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it was Project X before social media. We had over 600 people show up.
Love it.
Cops couldn't even break it up.
600? You were
600.
16? That's
It
insane.
was, I mean, we took a European exchange student. We had a European house DJ before that was even a thing. Smoke machines, fog machines. It was our biggest success. The only downside is Bart was grounded for about 2 years after that. So I didn't see him for a while. And so we had a lot of time to think up new ideas and things we could do next.
Oh, geez,
So
that's
his
crazy.
16th birthday goes down in Palm Harbor, Florida history, where we grew up.
Wow, man, that's a good one. Holy cow. Well, I mean, I feel like, you guys, obviously the friendship at the core of this, that, there's a lot of trust, and that long-term relationship, goes a long way, obviously. But man, during that first year or two, were there times where you're just like, there is no way this is going to work out? There had to be. Was there any doubt about it?
Well, all I remember from University of Miami, I got my business degree there, and
Yeah.
you learn a lot in school. Bart laughs at college education nowadays, unless you're going to be a doctor or an engineer. A lot of people don't gain a lot from it. One thing I always remembered from college was I had this awesome professor, and he said partnerships never work, and that always was in the back of my mind. That partnerships never work, and especially with friends or family, right?
Right.
That's like a cardinal sin, that just never works, and everybody's heard that. Oh, never do business with your family, never do business with your friends. It never ends well. And then I had this one professor who was really, really bitter. He said, no partnerships work, including marriage. The guy was really, been through the coals, so, so I always had that in the back of my head.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I was a little reluctant with at first. I will say that tough times pushed me into giving it a chance, where I would say if I wasn't in tough times, I probably would have never gave it a shot. And I'm glad I did. It was the best decision I've ever made in my life. There were serendipitous things before that, with our relationship and how we stayed connected. Because I think you're lucky to have you have a lot of acquaintances, you have a lot of connections, but to have some really true friends from childhood in your life, there's, I've got a couple of them, and,
Mhm.
I would say I'm lucky because a lot of people don't have that, and And now, granted, over the years we've had our tiffs, but we've always gotten through that. Anytime we've ever had a disagreement or a fight or anything like that, we've always, come back to it pretty quickly
Yeah.
and say, I think the most we've ever fought is for a few hours, and then we've decided, hey, the goal here is much bigger. Let's just be honest. And sometimes you got to blow some steam off, and I can take it out on him, and he could take it out on me. So
Right.
you have to be with any partnership. And remember, I always had that, is this person going to screw me over? Any partnership, you always have that. Am I going to do more work than this person? Or are they going to do more work? Partnerships, it's always an issue. There's always a dynamic. If you've got multiple partners, one partner is doing more work than the other. Or, this one's financially benefiting more than the other. So you always have to look at it from that vantage point, but you have to go at these things open-minded. And I see so many even practices with partnerships struggle because you really almost have to treat it like a marriage. And, I don't believe in divorce. So, that's just the way I was raised. No matter how tough it gets, I don't believe in divorce. So
Love it. I think that mentality has, really gone a long way for you guys clearly, because I agree with your professor. I think partnerships are difficult, in dentistry in particular. A lot of times you got egos and you got disagreements and all that sort of thing. But I think that base friendship you guys have, has served you well, but it doesn't happen automatically. You see friendships dissolve and evaporate. You see like brothers who go into business together.
family members.
Completely falls apart, because of, whether it's money or whether it's time or just disagreements over, your direction. The fact that you guys have stayed, kind of lockstep for this long is remarkable. And that, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why you've been so successful.
Well, I think you have to be grateful too. Like when I was like, life is not easy. Business is not easy. We see so many business owners struggle. You see that. And you see so many people in the day-to-day world struggle. And, Bart brought me in, gave me an opportunity. So no matter what we go through, I'm always ever grateful to him for creating that opportunity for me and my family. And, that was something. And over the years, yeah, we have our ups and downs, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to win for each other to help, support our families and grow something that we can be proud of and help people. And that's really the driver out of it. And, we just want to see continued progress, but you just always, I think when you hit rough roads, you always just have to look and be grateful for people in your life and grateful for the opportunities that you have. And, sometimes people can call me like a over the top optimist, but I don't know about you, Jim, but I would rather see it as half full than half empty.
Oh, hell yeah.
I hate the negative narrative out there. It's just,
I'm a firm believer in thoughts become things. What you think about is what you bring about. And by the way, whatever frequency you're vibrating out, you're pushing that out into the world, and that's what comes back to you. And if you're walking around negative all the time, guess what? That's what's going to reflect back to you. If you go out there high energy and positive, that impacts how people interact with you.
And I agree 1,000%. I think if you look at the relationship that Bart and I have built, anybody who knows us, we have a lot of similarities, but we're very different in a lot of ways. So I'm more, when I was at rock bottom trying to find my way, and then Bart picked me up. I was watching the movie The Secret. I was big into the law of attraction before it became a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tony Robbins guy. I'm very spiritual. I'm all about your concept. Thoughts become things. It's really how I live my life. Now, there's a downside to that in business, because I can be overly optimistic sometimes. A lot of times when I go to Bart, I went to Bart 5 years ago and said, we're going to get Tony Robbins. And he said, you're out of your mind. We can't afford it. And I said, we're going to soon. And, and those types of things that you work at for years, and then eventually it comes to fruition. But at the end of the day, what's great is when you have a partner like Bart, a CEO, he also is very brass tacks when it comes to strategy, when it comes to finance, when it comes to growing the business, when it comes to strategy. And, where sometimes guys like me, I'm big picture. I'm like, we can do anything. We can do anything we put our mind to. And then Bart will bring me down a little bit to reality. But we usually meet somewhere in the middle. And then next thing you know, you're hanging out with Tom Brady and the business is growing by percentages you could never have thought of. And it brings me back to like the early stages, Jim, when we were getting the business going. And I don't come from a lot. Okay. I wanted to be a doctor, but I couldn't get past organic chemistry. And
I couldn't get past that, my friend.
What was the weed out point for me? That in South Beach.
For a lot of people, seriously.
South Beach and organic chemistry did it in for me,
Boy, that combination just doesn't seem to work. Holy cow. Hey, you say organic chemistry, and that brings back some bad memories, but dude, I was at Indiana University. We had 300 people who started that class. You know how many finished it? About 60. That
Yeah,
means 80%. It was the weeding out process, I swear. And I mean, dude, I think the average score on our final exam, first semester, was like 10%. So, I mean, when you can get an A at 20%, you're talking about like just stupid stuff.
100%, 100%. And I think what's super cool is, why does any kid growing up want to be a doctor or a dentist, all these things beyond their parent telling them to go be a doctor,
Yeah.
because that's like, it's a badge of success, more maybe for the parents than the kids. But I can remember that, I was a straight A student, go be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor. I was, top of the class, medical
Yeah.
program. And when we were in that, we would go and shadow all these doctors. And I looked at it and I remember shadowing all these doctors. I never shadowed a dentist, but I shadowed like an orthopedic surgeon, all these people. And my question was, I'm a young kid, how much money do you make? And how many years of school did you have to? And I'm pulling it out.
Right.
This doesn't make any sense. I'm trying to like figure this whole student loan thing out and none of it's adding up. And then I remember the coolest shadowing I did as a kid is I went with a guy who was a hospital administrator of These Hospital here in Tampa Bay. And I got in his car. He had like a nice big, Mercedes S-Class sedan. And we went from hospital to hospital and everybody, when he came in, shook his hands. And then we went to like this fundraiser and the old rich lady would submit checks. And I was like, I like this side of the business. This is kind of cool, marketing and sales and business. And I said, kind of intriguing. So it led me to it. But, when I first got going into business, Jim, it was, I would pencil out how I was going to actually make any money in this business.
Mm-hmm.
And it never penciled out. And it was like, man, how many thousands of customers do I need? Like it was like a long shot to get anything going. And I think when you just become passionate about something and you become less about the money, you dig in, that's when things start to fall in place. And that's really what I enjoy most about this. It's,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's trying to pencil out the next level. How do we scale it?
Right.
There's ways to do it. And I think ways to bring it closer to you. And sometimes it doesn't always pencil out day one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think big and you got to keep moving.
For sure. I shared with you yesterday that I did some research, just because I like to feel like I've gotten to know people at kind of a deeper level so that I've got better questions and all that sort of thing. And, obviously part of your background, finance and coming from outside of dentistry, do you think your background helped you see things and understand things in dentistry that a lot of people who spent their whole career in the industry maybe didn't see or understand the same way?
I think there's a couple things in understanding finance that are important. And I think a lot of people misconstrue this when it comes to marketing, when it comes to business, when it comes to, the number one thing we hear from clients when we we're managing, upwards of almost $100 million in ads and $80 to $100 million in ad spend.
Wow.
And growing. And we're one of the largest in the space. I think the largest. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure we're the largest.
Pretty sure you are too. I can't imagine anybody being bigger than
But
me.
here's where people get screwed up with this stuff. And I hope people start to put on their finance hat when it comes to growth, when it comes to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing you got to understand is most people are living paycheck to paycheck. About 70+% of the population. Sometimes some of the reports show higher.
Yeah.
Most people, and this includes business owners, this includes doctors, this includes dentists, most of them are living paycheck to paycheck. And expenses in many cases rise to income. And it doesn't matter, you hear the stories of the guy, the NFL player with the $200 million contract who goes broke. You hear about, and I would hear stories from dentists and I was like, the guy's doing $5 million a year and he's bankrupt and he's going bankrupt and he's suicidal. Like, what's going on here? Like, hear these stories and it's something that plagues everybody. And I think there's a lot of financial illiteracy and there's a lot of challenges that affects all of us. And you start looking at look at marketing as an example and look at that as an investment. Okay. And this is where people go wrong. Like literally, I tell my team the worst cancellation we ever see is a guy who's getting a 8 or a 9 or a 10 times return on ad spend.
Yeah.
Their cost of goods and their margins are about 50%. So they're making about a 400% return on investment, and they want to cancel because it's not enough.
Yeah.
And you start really looking at it, even like a break even. When a client breaks even on a marketing campaign, and you compare that to like companies like Coca-Cola when they run $1 million ads on the Super Bowl, they're not looking at it. And I think that sometimes in marketing and finance, they're correlated, but we get misconstrued. When I look at my portfolio, if I make 5 or 10%, like that's like good. And the bank takes their pound of flesh, and everybody takes their pound of flesh, and the advisors take their pound of flesh, and the government takes their pound of flesh. And at the end, what type of returns do we really get when we just have money parked? Unless we're focused on some exotic speculative investments with big upsides, but with big upside comes big risk. And I think a lot of times people in private practice struggle with this understanding of true rates of return. And I think that can help practices really scale and understand. When you really look at what we're looking at, I mean, we have practices that have 15, 20 times returns on ad spend.
Yeah. That's
Even at a 50%, even at a 50% cost of goods. Do the actual procedures, you're talking 800, 900%, 1,000% return on investment per month. Per month, not even annualized, per month. I think sometimes we underestimate how powerful these things can be and how important it is if we can close a case or two extra, if we get a little bit better at communicating with our patients. The returns are astronomical, but I think there's a lot of limited information on financial. And I think some of the biggest challenges in dental is the practices. These guys are just sitting there kind of by themselves. They're balancing the book almost on their bank balance, what's coming out. And I think a lot of dentists struggle with financials. I think that's a big issue I see.
Well, we don't learn it in dental school. It's not part of our curriculum as a general rule. Or if it is, it's very small, and we're so focused on the other 26 credit hours and, all of our clinical responsibilities and all the things that are feel more urgent in order to graduate, that it maybe doesn't make an impact. And I think those are some of the things that lead to the depression and substance abuse and divorce and suicide in our profession. And so that I think that anybody in the industry who's helping bridge that gap, helping educate, helping dentists see things in a different light, is creating value that can kind of start to turn those trends around. And I think it's one of the things that differentiates you guys, that real focus on the business element that isn't always there. And would you say, in terms of what differentiates you guys, because there's a plethora of dental marketing companies out there. I have a lot of friends with marketing companies and got a lot of respect for what everybody does, but everybody comes at it from a different angle. What do you think really differentiates you guys from most of the competition?
I think the biggest thing that we really hone in on is content and branding is a critical part of your strategy.
Yeah.
And I see so many folks, and again, it comes back to the financial element. So many practices, we get the calls a lot of times where it's like, hey man, I'm about to go under. What can you do immediately? I've got $5,000 a month to throw at an ad campaign. Can you get something going? And unfortunately, that's the riskiest type of campaign you can do.
Yeah.
It has the highest degree of cancellation or non-performance because the practice is desperate. And unfortunately, a lot of practices get to those points. They're reliant on insurance. They say, oh, we've never marketed. So when they do market, it's a different world, or they've been solely referrals and insurance. So they've never really had a big struggle with case presentation and things like that. So they're kind of just going through the motions. And in those situations, they don't have big reserves. All of a sudden, one bad month or one bad quarter, and they're in a tough situation because why? They've got the big mortgage. They've got the big student loans. They've got the cars. They've got all these bills. They've got kids in private school. I see it every day. And all of a sudden it's crunch time and they start to make quick decisions when it comes to marketing. So the first thing I say, number one, is you got to have a good strategic foundation and you got to really get specific on exactly what you want. This isn't just dentistry. This is anything. the more specific we can get on our goals, if you listen to a lot of the Napoleon Hills and all the gurus in business and success, there's a lot of similarities. What do they all say? Get very specific with your goals, write it down every day, look at it every day, and take action towards those goals every single day. A lot of practices will come to us and say, hey, I just want to grow. I want to make more money. Okay, here's $1. You made more money. Get more specific is the number one thing. So I think on the strategy side, and then dissect that, Jim. How can you break that down? If I want to grow $100,000, but I'm built out and I don't have enough ops,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing 100 new patients a month already,
Yeah.
like I can't double my practice by seeing 200 new patients.
Mhm.
So what am I most passionate about?
Yeah.
Implants, full arch, cosmetics, Invisalign, sleep apnea. What is it? How can I make up that 50K or 100K in an ideal world that isn't going to break your back, that isn't going to put you in the chiropractor 5 days a week? Okay,
Mhm.
like this is real stuff that we talk
Yeah.
that, and your bodies are also taking a toll too on this amount of dentistry.
No doubt about that.
firsthand.
Yeah.
So first thing is you got to really understand a succinct strategy to get you to where you want to be, and what is going to be the most efficient way to get there based
Mhm.
on your clinical skill sets. Strategy is a big part of it.
Mhm.
Then it's, okay, how are we going to go to market? Every practice says the same thing. What makes you different? What do they all say? We treat everybody like family. We care about everybody. We do great dentistry.
Right.
Stand behind our work.
Right.
So does everybody else. I've never had a dentist tell me we do crappy work. We're not qualified. We learned this in a weekend course. Sorry, guys. I know some of you are going to be like, oh my God, did he say that? We learned this in a 3-day weekend course. We're not that good at it. We've only done a couple of cases, but give us a shot. We'll charge you.
Mhm.
Nobody says that.
Yeah.
Marketing is everything. Content is everything. Everybody complains we want more quality leads, but then they don't want to spend money on creating a quality brand. You got to put your brand out there.
I read a long time ago before I ever started marketing, 25 years ago, it was like taboo, marketing and dentistry and all this stuff. And I kind of drank that Kool-Aid for a little while. And I didn't start marketing until I felt like I had done a lot of CE and I felt like, hey, you know what? I'm pretty damn good now. And now I'm confident to put my stuff out there. And if I don't tell the world what I do, nobody's going to know. They're going to think I'm just like everybody else. And so I read this book that said exactly that. Get your branding out there first. You got to become like not a household name necessarily, but you've got to be recognizable so that when you start marketing, people know who you are and the message is more likely to resonate because of that familiarity. Is that kind of how you see it?
The key thing is, Jim, how do we differentiate?
Yeah.
Our content, I think, is that we invested probably about 8 years ago. We started investing heavily in video production, bringing our teams in. I've got a team of, I think we're at about 115 now. But I mean, we just won an Emmy award for the content. I've got a wall full of awards. These guys are like I've got some of these guys that I could tell you could make movies. They're that good.
Well, you guys do have amazing content. You really do.
And that is, I think, one of the biggest things. So look, first you got to start with high-end, specific to your strategy, content creation, so that your marketing can tell a story. And some people say, well, I don't have 10 years to build a brand like Coca-Cola or 50 years to build a brand.
Yeah.
You can cut the line. Kind of like when you go to a nightclub, Jim, you're VIP, you go right to the front of the line. I already cut that.
Clearly.
When you're in Dubai on your VIP retreat, I know you guys aren't waiting any line. So you just pay the piper and you go right to the front of the line. You can do that in marketing. You create and curate high-end content. Look at the biggest names in dental that you hear about. Appa, these guys. What did they do? They just created a lot of content. Look at, and what is marketing today? It's it's reality TV.
Yeah.
So the more you can document patient experience, patient transformation, and allow people to connect with you at a personal level, now all of a sudden, by the time they get to you, they've already chosen you. And that's people always say, I want quality leads, but they just go right to Meta and Google and start running ads. Without that first piece, a lot of people miss the boat. And they're not always willing to make those investments because it's not cheap to do high quality content. AI is making things a little bit better, but it's still notably, you can tell it's AI. It's not quite there yet. So content is king. But now as you start to go out and drive traffic, understand when you're spending money, Mark Zuckerberg and those guys at Google and Meta, like they don't care if you get results or not. We care, you care. They don't care because they have a monopoly on the market.
Yeah.
If I'm going to spend money to get eyeballs, because that's what you pay for when you pay for marketing, and people think they're buying results. They're buying eyeballs. They're buying impressions. Your agency helps you get the right impressions, but the content is what sticks it together. If the content sucks, you're going to have a tough time.
Absolutely.
And then the last piece, Jim, which I think, so number one, the content and the strategy is our critical differentiator, 100%. Very few companies have the bandwidth to do what we do at scale, just because it's hard. And those that do, a lot of times they outsource it. We bring everything in-house. These are award-winning, top people, quality control, and we're able to do stuff at a reasonable price. On the second end, man, you have to invest in your team, and you've got to get your team to be able to take a lead and turn it into a paying patient. That is not easy, and that takes work. I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars in business in my career. I'm pretty good at influence, and I think my biggest strength is I'm pretty good at sales. I'm pretty good at closing a deal. I can connect with people. I can close deals, but work at it, man. I spend over $250,000 a year, even to this day, training, going to retreats, going to different events to try to better my skill sets. And dentists do it. We're always trying to scale our clinical skill sets.
Yeah.
But our team, we usually, when I look at teams, Jim, and even a highly successful office, you usually have a couple all-stars in a highly successful office surrounded by a lot of mediocrity.
That's true.
And most offices, it's mediocre, and they hire from, this gal couldn't cut it at this office, so we hire her, we hire this person, we hire this person. Guys, I came into dentistry with zero dental experience. I think you can find, and I've seen some of the best administrative team members come from outside dentistry. This is one of the best professions in the world. There is talent galore, but we're just keep trading mediocre performers from one office to another.
Look,
Let's
man,
start
get the
bringing
right
in some all
people.
stars.
You get the right people and you can train them to do anything. I mean, I remember as a young dentist, Gerritt, where I would hire resumes, and it was almost always a disaster. They had all this experience and they had all these bad habits. And by the way, you can't train a personality. But if you got the right personality, you have the right mindset, you have the right work ethic, then you can train them to do anything. And if they're part of your culture, which by the way is more important now than ever before. I mean, we both know that it's harder than ever to attract and retain top talent. And so when you get them, you better provide that culture to where they're going to stay, because it's almost as important as what you pay them. And it's true in any business, in your business, in my business, in a dental practice. It's like you got to invest in yourself. You got to invest in your people. And that's what's going to continue to drive growth and put you in a position to continue creating value for the people you serve, right?
I do this thing 100%, Jim. And I will tell you, I do this thing when I get the big groups together and I've got 1,000, 2,000 people in a room. I always like to poll the audience because it gives you a good litmus test on what's going on out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because some of the things that I hear all the time, if I have a room full of doctors, 100, 500, 1,000, and I ask them who's having trouble with staffing, about 95% of them will raise their hand.
Yeah.
They'll raise their hand. And I think it's plagued by a few things. Biggest challenge in America is employee disengagement. It's not finance. It's not marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people who act as owners. I always say act like an owner, get paid like an owner. Those are your right hands.
Yeah.
Better do something to keep them locked in.
Hell yeah.
And that's exactly what Bart did with me. Bart brought me in and made me a partner, changed my life completely. If he hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have stayed. He brought me in. He had started the company. He gave me an opportunity. And then he said, you're going to be my partner. And that's what got me through some of the tough times, is because there's a pot at the end of the rainbow. So at the end of the day, you get those A players, you got to develop a way to keep them, whether it's commission plans, comp plans, profit sharing. I had one practice that the treatment coordinator did so well, killed it, like quadrupled the business from like 2 million to 8 million. Doctor opened up 2 other practices, made that manager a partner on them.
I know who you're talking about.
I've seen that done a few times.
Yeah.
It's like people think that that's impossible. Nothing's impossible.
Oh, absolutely.
You also have team members that are completely disengaged, that are working against you, that literally hate your guts.
Mm-hmm.
That are working for you, just checking in and out. They're sabotaging your business. They hope you go out of business. They're already planning their exit. And then the toughest ones, which we talk about, are those that are just kind of coasting. I see the majority of teams in dental are kind of coasting and they're being carried by a few all-stars. The all-stars out there know who they are. They carry the weight of the team. And then oftentimes they share in a group bonus. Meanwhile, they deserve it all. And I see that. The other thing that I see is, got to really build that team. If you invest in the team, it's game over. And again, we get kind of comfortable. If we're seeing results, if we're seeing decent performance, we assume we don't need to do any better. And if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, that's the name of the game.
You touched on something there, Gerritt, that I think is really important. And to a certain extent, it's counterintuitive. I think a lot of people see themselves as leaders and they're strong and they can do everything and kind of become micromanagers. I think they feel as if giving away control diminishes them in some way. But the best leaders are the ones who, create other leaders and distribute that leadership, which then gives people that sense of ownership, that sense of autonomy and that sense that, hey, he's not just pitching me stuff to do or delegating. He's delegating to me and trusting me. And that trust, I think, is what really moves the needle. And by the way, it doesn't mean that an employee or a team member is always going to do everything right. They're going to make mistakes like we do, and that's okay because those are learning experiences. And as long as they take that feedback and they get better and they don't make the same mistake again, that's what drives growth individually and as a company.
100%. 100%. And where focus goes, energy flows. I see offices, all they do is focus on how subpar their team is, how they can't do anything because of their team, and they can't find any good people, and I can't hire anybody. Well, exactly.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it plagues dental. I've seen it, but then what drives me is I see the other side of it.
Yeah.
And when I see those offices, like I can almost, doing this for going on almost 17 years, I can talk to a doctor in one Zoom call or one conversation or one personal interaction, and probably in about 15, 20 minutes, I can tell if this doctor is going to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a leadership element to it that is natural. They've got to have a positive outlook, and there are some practice owners that really struggle in that area. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think you have to like I recognize I have to become a better leader if I want to go to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Rohn says it best. You have to, Jim Rohn, for those of you who don't know, Tony Robbins learned a lot from Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn was one of the original guys out there, and they've all kind of taken their own spin on personal development. But one of the things that he always said was like, to be that multimillionaire, you have to become that person before you actually reap that benefit. You want to become a billionaire, you got to become that person. We just had, hate it or love it, we just had our first billionaire dentist on Forbes recently. And that was pretty cool, to be honest.
That's cool.
And
even with a provocative title, dentists want to punch this guy in the face. Like, wait, what?
But hey, it's a dentist on the cover of Forbes.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
And look, I mean, I had a practice just the other day. I mean, guy just got a $22 million valuation on his practice, single practitioner. Like, guys, you can build generational wealth in dentistry. You absolutely can. But I think sometimes as owners, as leaders, we have to look in the mirror and say, when our team falls short, it's our responsibility and we have to get better as leaders. And I think a lot of times because we're owner operators still, we kind of get caught in the weeds and we just say, I'm going to focus on doing the clinical work. And then they outsource that to a manager or whatever who doesn't have the same benefit as they do. So I think overall, I encourage practice owners to really focus on becoming better leaders. And I think that solves a lot of marketing problems. It solves a lot of finance problems. It solves a lot of staffing problems, but we've got to learn to become better leaders. It's something I have to work on. We all have to work on. And I think sometimes people could take it offensively. It's like when they tell me you need to lose weight. Yeah, I know, nobody wants to hear that, but nobody wants to hear, oh, you're a horrible leader. Nobody wants to hear that, but we have to kind of self-reflect and say, where am I falling short? How can I get better? I'm constantly trying to look at that every day.
Man, that self-awareness piece is absolutely critically important to being a leader, because if you don't have that self-awareness, then you're not going to have empathy for others. And self-awareness is where, we become open to feedback. We become open to continue to learn, because as you said, as soon as you stop learning or become complacent, you start dying and growth is stifled completely. So no, man, I agree 1,000,000% with that. One of the things I love about you, and one of the things that I see you like on social media, or you say it in person all the time, you run with runners, man. I love that. I love that mentality and that philosophy because look, we've got limited days on this earth and you want to spend your time, if you want to be a 10, spend your time with 10s. Spend your time with people, creating at a higher level who we can learn from. I mean, you just said it. You invest in yourself. You invest at a level that almost nobody invests at. And that's amazing because when you invest in yourself, you've got so much more to give other people. And creating that value is what creates that, that financial benefit at the end of the day. You don't do well financially unless you're creating real value for other people. And so, for you, that whole notion, run with runners, who is the first person, the first people who kind of forced you to raise and elevate your game? Who really inspired you early on?
So run with the runners is a saying that I actually used to hear a lot from my brother, and it came from my grandfather, who I never knew. My grandfather passed at a young age. My grandfather he came back from the war. He didn't have a lot of education, but he was let's just say he was a pretty influential businessman in the local market. And he was a character that I kind of connected to at a young age through stories and kind of a lot of bravado, would roll around in the newest Cadillacs all the time, and real estate developer, had his own phone line at the local bar. You can kind of put two and two together.
Yeah.
And he was kind of the guy locally. He built a lot of the local towns. So growing up, I always wanted to be a developer, and he did this with his brother. He passed young, so I didn't know a lot about him. He passed away when I was just a baby. And I always heard stories about him that my mother was like, you remind me of him and a lot of his energy. And, but you just have more smarts, book smarts. He was more street smarts. And that was something that always connected with me. And then my brother, who I was also very close to, I had an older brother who I looked up to a lot. He would always say that because he still hung out with my grandfather's brother. And that's what they always would say. It was a saying that they said, you got to run with the runners. And the concept was, doesn't matter where you're at in life.
Mm-hmm.
You always heard like you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around.
Yeah, right.
You run with runners. You run with people who are going after things, who are moving fast. Like you can't hang out with those people and be mopey.
Yeah,
like you can't hang out around a bunch of hustlers who are going for goals and who are goal oriented and be a Debbie Downer. They're not going to hang out with you. They're not even going to associate with you. Now, naturally, when you run with runners, it's a saying that it was just like, get with people who are getting it, and then you're going to go places. So what do I try to do? What did I do? I saw Bart running and I was flat. My business had failed and I had swung and missed several times and it just wasn't working out for me, but I knew I had something to go. And man, I remember a book too, Trump's Art of the Deal book. Hate him or love him, President Trump is one of his first big books, Art of the Deal. I read one of the things that's connected to me is like so many people want to be the number one in a business. And he said, you can do really well being a number 2 or a number 3 or a number 4 or a number 5.
Yeah.
A lot of times ego gets in front of you guys that are entrepreneurs that are afraid to be a number 2, afraid to be number 3. I just saw NVIDIA put out like 80% of their employees are all worth over $10 million and like a chunk of them are worth over 20.
Be a number 50. I have no problem with that, man.
I'll be a number 200 at NVIDIA.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? But the point is, Patrick Bet-David talks about this, being an entrepreneur within a business, and you get in with the right practice, you get in with the right group. You don't have to be on an island all by yourself. So that was a big thing. And run with the runners was huge because I saw Bart was running. I said, this guy's running. I got to get with this guy. And I knew him. We were tight for our whole lives, but he kept running. And I said, he's moving fast. I want to get with him. And at the time, it's just, and I take the same thing into my business today, every day. When I bring in Tom Brady, I want to run with the runners. Yeah, I'm paying him to speak to you guys on leadership and success and growth, but man, I want to be in his presence, shake his hand. He's playing catch with Bart's son backstage. And when you get in the presence of greatness, shaking somebody's hand, being with someone like Tony Robbins, who's affected millions of people, run with the runners, guys. It rubs off on you. Success leaves clues. It rubs off of you. And when in doubt, you got friends, you're all right.
Hey, man, I love that. I love that. And it's like, when I started the Foundation Dental Alliance and luxury dental retreats and all that, I surrounded myself with those people, niche experts, good friends, people I trust, people who elevate me and people from whom I learn. And that's why when we went to Dubai last August, I've got Steve Rasner, who's a rock star. I've got Jeff Buski, rock star. You know Jeff real well. I know Elijah Desmond, who I know is a good friend of yours. I mean, when I get to spend 5 days with those guys in a small room with just 12 people, I mean, hey man, I'm selfish. I was having the time of my life, but the best part of all of that was the value we created for the dentists who paid to be there and be in that room with us. And, yet that's what you do on a very big level to bring these incredible humans into a room where they share their expertise and what they've accomplished in life with dentists who may not be thinking at that level, but it just forces everybody to think at a higher level. And that's really a fun thing to do, isn't it?
It's what it's all about. I mean, and when you get into those rooms, just things happen, deals happen, opportunities open up. Bart always said, take the meeting. If you get somebody that wants to talk to you, you take the meeting. I don't care if time doesn't permit, you get there somehow, some way. And
figure it out.
When I saw you last year in Dallas and we sat there, we were at a social event at the end of one of the sessions and we were just rapping and I could immediately tell, he's a runner. And then as we've become closer friends and I've watched you and your interaction with a lot of these guys who are all runners, and runners are one of the things about runners and the whole concept of run with the runners, you see this a lot in business and dentistry particularly. You have kind of a victim mindset and you have a victor mindset. Half full, half glass empty, hater. We all have haters. There's haters everywhere. It's a measure of success. Don't worry, guys. The more you have, the better. Trust me. But at the end of the day, when I saw that, I was like, hey, this is a guy that I want to associate with. And not even like, what could we do together right out of the gate? When I called you up and said, hey, I'd love for you to come out to Vegas. I knew Elijah Desmond was going to be out there. A lot of mutual friends and collaborators were going to be out there. I said, hey, if you're available, come out in Vegas. I'd love to have you out as my guest. And really just to run with you, just to hang out with you a little bit, just to spend a little time together, really no motive. But I know that if I can continually build relationships with people that are thinking at a higher level, that are pushing the envelope, it's only going to help me get better, which if I'm not getting better, I'm done, and that's what it is.
Gerritt, I feel the same way. And that's why I came out. I wouldn't have accepted an invitation like that from most people just because, hey, man, I was on the road 9 out of 10 weeks. That was one week where I was going to be home, but I was happy to get the invite. I was excited to come out, hang out a little bit. And, same thing. You hang out with really great people and put on great events. And I'm glad I did. And hey, I'm glad we're talking today too. And I'm telling you, man, I'm going to get you on one of those luxury dental retreats sometime too.
Well, I'm in. I like the sound of Mykonos.
Oh yeah, I know, man. We're going end of October.
We did one a few years ago. And I will say you inspired me to say we need to do more of this. Like 2-3 years ago, we took a group out to Mykonos. And it was incredible. So we took like 25 of our biggest doctors. We had a course in Vegas. Now, this is right up your alley. We had a course in Vegas, and then we flew from Vegas all the way to Mykonos.
Wow.
Right when we landed in Mykonos, there was tons of delays. I mean, we were flying for days. There was delays galore. We made it to Mykonos. Half the group was already there. We were doing a dental implant mastery course at this beautiful resort in Mykonos.
Yeah.
And we had some of our biggest doctors. They all chipped in. So we had a big yacht one day right up your alley.
Yeah.
And right there, we're sea bobbing all around. A couple of the doctors got had a little too much fun.
No
we
way.
won't name any names. A couple of the doctors, but it's always good. It's all good fun. We took them.
Yeah.
Everybody had a good time. And then one night we went to Scorpio's and we like blew the place out. I mean, it was an absolute phenomenal experience. And most of those doctors today are still great friends, great clients. We've grown together. Some of them have had huge private equity, $20, $30 million events, created generational wealth for their family. And it's awesome to see that. And I think that that's so powerful. So a big push for us this year, actually your big inspiration, is we want to do more VIP retreats, platinum events, because that's really where it starts to, when you get those groups together and I'm learning just as much as, I might be teaching some of this stuff, but I'm learning, from the folks that I'm with. I mean, I learned from you guys.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, you want to be with people from whom you can learn, and I feel like you can learn a little something from everybody. But
Oh,
there's some people I can learn a lot more from, and that's why again those small group things are those opportunities where you're sharing those experiences. Because look, man, it's great to have world class education, like in the sort of formal. Well, it's not even formal; it's conversational education. But then when you're doing VIP activities, and to your point, skipping the line for everything, those conversations continue. And then when you're having fine dining, like it continues and you have a couple of cocktails and you loosen up a little bit more and you're just sharing everything. And then in Dubai, when we're out on that 72-foot yacht where, Elijah's DJing and people are dancing and drinking and jet skiing, all that stuff. I mean, hey, it's not all about the education. It's about the relationships. And when you share stuff like that, like you did with those docs on Mykonos, those are long-term relationships. Every doc who went to a luxury dental retreat last year is a member of my family. I mean, like they will always have my commitment to help them in any way I can because they're a part of something special that I'm building. So I know you feel the same way. You mentioned at the start of this conversation, when your first international event, you were in Canada talking to 7 people. Most of them are still clients all these years later, and that's what it's about.
100%, 100%. So yeah, I mean, again, on one hand, you think, okay, we got to do things bigger and bigger and bigger, but there's also that power where you have those private events and the opportunities to scale with your biggest customers. We went to the biggest event, the bigger events over time because we didn't be so many places at once. But
Yeah,
now as
right.
we scale, it's the old 80-20 rule. I mean, we've got some pretty big clients that, invest, 7 figures plus with us a year. So, we want to really build and foster those relationships because those are the trendsetters. And I think a lot of times you hear about these KOLs and you hear about all these guys on stages and stuff telling you, the same names that you hear in education over and over and over again. What I've seen is a lot of those guys, respect to all of you, but
Yeah,
a lot of them really aren't doing a whole lot when it comes to clinical. And
that's
when I see the guys that are actually rolling the sleeves up, growing, I'm talking dental practices doing 15-20 million dollars a year,
mhm.
non-corporate owned or
Yeah,
like
right.
that exists. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that is out there and that is achievable. And, I'm a big advocate for, building generational wealth and leveraging private equity and those things in the right way. But I've also seen a lot of negative scenarios from it too.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
advice to my clinicians is if it's worth selling, it might be worth keeping too. So you have to think at that and you got to look at what's best for you. And that's why I want the best guys in the country, like you, Elijah, and guys who are going to really give people good, honest feedback when it
yeah.
comes to transitioning and building generational wealth and setting it up properly, because you can really build something pretty unique nowadays because
Like
competition is weak, guys. I know a lot of you think competition is fierce. Competition is weak.
That's right. I mean, you just have to make a decision to differentiate yourself and invest in yourself, invest in your team, and make the decisions that other people aren't willing to make. Maybe work a little bit harder, but probably more than anything, work a little bit smarter. And if you want to achieve something, if somebody's already done it, then it's doable. It's just like spend some time with them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, maybe you're super creative and you have a new idea and great, run with it. But man, if Dr. Jones is doing what you want to do, it's doable. Go figure out how they did it. Whether you go straight to them or you go to the people who mentored them, that's how it happens. And that's why, with our Foundation Dental Mastermind, it's the same thing. We got all these great educators who've done all the stuff. And so we're hell bent on helping other dentists bend time, condense time, fast track success, learning not just from our successes, but from our failures. And that's what moves the needle. And that's what drives growth to $15 million practices, $20 million practices, having the right marketing message. But as you've said before, growth isn't all about the marketing. It's about the systems. You could have the best marketing in the world, but if your systems are broken or if your team isn't elevating, isn't operating at that elevated level, then it ain't going to happen. And I'll tell you what, One of the things I respect most about you, Gerritt, and what you guys have built is you're not just a marketing company. You're also an education company because you recognize that systems were broken. And so let's talk about that a little bit, about those systems that are broken and the things that have to change for practices so that the great marketing comes in and actually has the impact that they want it to.
I like the concept of, everybody's heard about the 80-20 rule, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Pareto's
Pareto's principle.
okay. And you can kind of apply that to a lot of different things, but how I apply it is you can get 80% of the result doing 20% of the work. You could apply it as, at 20% of the market does 80% of the business. You can apply it those ways. One of the things, I was working with a coach and they said, I liked how they applied it. They said, you have a goal and you start breaking down. So here's my goal. I want to grow to a $5 million practice, and I'm at 2 million. I want to grow to 5 million. So then you list out, okay, the top 10 things that are going to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Select the 20% of those 10 things. And what you oftentimes find is if you pick the top 2 or 3 things in there, it'll get you 80% of the way there. So I try to look at this from a different vantage point. So there's a million things systems-wise you can get into. I'm going to tell you one of the biggest things that I see most common in almost every single office that struggles with marketing. Almost every single office on a sales and conversion standpoint. The biggest challenge when we studied this across thousands of campaigns, most offices on average take about 8 hours to connect with an actual patient lead. And a lot of offices will fight me tooth and nail, literally, no pun intended. And they'll say, we call them, we do everything, we do this, we do. So we said, look, let's track it. Let's put mechanisms in place using automation, using AI to really look at that. And if you look just in general, this isn't just in dental, this is in all areas of business. Response time is the most critical element required to see optimal results in marketing. And most offices are not set up for it. They try to outsource this to call centers. They try to do this, but what happens is they lose the empathetic piece. A few years ago, we had Chris Voss, FBI hostage negotiator, author of the book, Never Split the Difference. And he had a term that he coined, strategic empathy. A call center overseas cannot master strategic empathy and connect at a high level with a prospective patient looking to come in and do a $30, $40, or $50,000 full mouth reconstruction, cosmetic procedure, multi-implant, or all on X case. It can't happen. So not only we have to bridge the gap there between connection, but then we also have to build a connection with them on that phone, on that call. The sale is made on the call. A lot of people said, oh, we're in this AI world, open table world. Let's just let them book online. What did we see? Show rates plummet. Okay. The biggest, I think, thing that a lot of offices can do, yes, we can all get better at influence and negotiation and financing, but at the biggest thing, if you're going to market, number one thing, get targeted on what types of procedures you want to get in. Do not spend a ton of money trying to drive general dentistry. Focus on niche areas where you can see larger incremental gains. It could be an Invisalign procedure. It could be a cosmetic procedure. It could be an all-on-X. Anything there. This works in all these avenues. Mm-hmm. But you have to become obsessed with connection rate and booking rate. It's the most overlooked metric that we see in offices. And data that we've seen across the board, the difference between 60-second response time and a 5-minute, which is like stellar for most offices, is almost 4 times the result. If we look at that one little thing, and any marketer that knows anything about marketing in the country, there's a lot of marketing agencies, they'll all say the same exact thing. It's the biggest thing, but it's hard because it goes back to leadership. It goes back to systems. Mm-hmm. Offices, when they struggle, this is where they struggle, and they have a hard time admitting it. It's where we struggle. If I start generating hundreds and hundreds of leads for an upcoming course with Tom Brady, I deal with the same issue that all of our practices, every marketer deals with this issue. So in the coming days, months, years, AI is going to help us a lot with this, but it won't replace it completely because you still need that strategic empathy, guys. And I think everybody at admin jobs is so afraid, is AI going to take my job? AI is going to help us better connect quickly with these prospects, but it still needs our help with that strategic empathy. And that's where we can really hone in on. Become really good at strategic empathy. And all that means is sell from your heart. Coach A was big on that. He said, lead from your heart, sell from your heart. How do you sell? You actually truly care and you want to help people. People feel that. If all you're trying to create is a transaction, you're dead in the water. But I'll tell you, biggest thing that practices can look at systems-wise is minimize time of lead to connection. You really want that patient still sitting in front of the computer. They literally clicked enter, and within 60 seconds, they're getting multiple calls, emails, and texts, and we're trying to make a connection. Then we got to go into strategic empathy overload, and that sale begins on the call. Do that, you're in the best industry on planet Earth. You can make any of your dreams come true in dental. You can learn all the sales techniques. You can have the best marketing in the world. But if you don't have that piece mastered, you're always going to struggle with marketing, guys.
Man, those are just great words of wisdom, Gerritt. Thank you. I mean, these are good reminders for everybody. I mean, and you said it, it's industry agnostic. It's just human relationships and just that being available, being responsive, those things that my dad taught me. My dad's a real estate agent. He's almost 84, and he still does it full time. And guess what? We're out to lunch, we're out to dinner. It doesn't matter. His phone rings, he answers it. He is available immediately. And I guess, when you think about it from a consumer standpoint, when you're ready to make a sale buy something or schedule something, in that moment, that's how you're feeling. As soon as you send that message or make that call, it kind of starts to fade away over time. So that makes perfect sense, Gerritt. And to be frank, I've never really thought of it like that. That's a huge deal.
Well, and I sent this to my team this morning, and I liked it a lot. I said, pretend that every single person you meet has a sign around his or her neck that says, make me feel important. Not only will you succeed in sales, you'll succeed in life. People want to feel important, and that's, if you look back to sales psychology, life psychology, what are most of our problems come to? We don't feel like we're loved enough, and we feel like we're not good enough. Like, that's where most problems arise. That's where most addictions arise. That's where most challenges arise. And we all have our shortcomings, myself included. But if you look at the root of almost all of your problems, it's usually trying to fill some of those voids that have developed over years. And dentists aren't immune to it. Team members aren't immune to it. I don't care how successful you are, you're not immune to it. Elon Musk is not immune to it. Jeff Bezos is not immune to it. The billionaire dentist is not immune to it. Everybody is constantly battling that. And just a rule of thumb, like people say, oh, you guys teach sales training. We get a lot of critics, as you can imagine. We're the biggest in the space. We're 20 times larger than our next competitor. And a lot of people don't know that. We don't gloat about it. People speculate. We have a lot of naysayers. We have a lot of critics. But what keeps me driving is I also change a lot of lives. And that's why we're successful. And if I hone in on that and people say aggressive, high pressure sales tactics, no, guys, it's about connection, and it's about understanding human behavior, and it's about helping people see and believe that there's a better version of themselves. And if we show that we care, guess what? You're going to do all right in business. You're going to do all right in practice. And if you lead with that, but you need opportunities coming in the door. You care more than everyone.
Yeah.
If you don't have a team to roll out that red carpet for patients, and you don't have a mechanism to drive those patients in the door, well, you could also suffer that way as well. So, I think everybody has the opportunity to serve at a high level. And, Coach K, I think he was one of our best speakers we ever had, from Duke, one of the most winningest college basketball coaches in history, but a phenomenal leader, and really just kind of an average guy next door, but super, super big heart, and wrote a book. It's called Leading with the Heart, and I have it right here. I mean, leading with the heart, selling with the heart.
Yeah.
You do that, I think you're going to really do well in anything you do.
Well, you've obviously spent some time with some pretty big names. I mean, I know I mentioned them in the intro. We briefly alluded to Coach K and, Tom Brady and Tony Robbins and all these kinds of people. And I think that's amazing. And then the money that you've invested in yourself, I think it's really great. Those people, when you get around those people, what do you think what do they understand about performance that, maybe average Joe or, the average dentist out there doesn't really understand? And what can we take from them?
Tom Brady, I mean, he crushed it for us a couple years ago in Orlando.
He was so
We had
good.
Tom Brady, Mark Wahlberg, we had Ray Lewis there, we had Andrew Bustamante, a lot of great clinicians speaking as well. The biggest thing that I learned from Tom, and some of you that know about Tom Brady's story, he was not really set out to be anything special. If you look at the videos, I mean, he was pretty darn slow.
Yeah.
Combine, I mean, he looked like he had lead in his cleats. I mean, he wasn't the most athletic.
Hey, man, if it wasn't for Drew Bledsoe's injury, you never know what might have happened.
And Tom said something really interesting. And in dealing with him, you see that this is one of the key things. The turning point for Tom was he worked with a sports psychologist, and he did a lot of internal self-work on managing his own psychology and his own mental state. And, a few years ago when Tom came here to Tampa, and actually the Bucks, I mean, sucked forever. And then Tom came in and Tom shook him up. And of course, I mean, go figure, he comes in and first year in wins the Super Bowl. I mean, unbelievable. Then the next year he almost had it again. I took a bunch of my sales guys out to see him Monday Night Football. And I said, hopefully we get to see a Tom Brady moment. And everybody knows what that is. A Tom Brady moment, if you don't, you should know. It's the comeback from the impossible in the fourth quarter. And he's done it time and time again, and he's most known for that. You look at guys like Michael Jordan. They're known for when it's down to the crunch time, that fadeaway jumper, they don't miss. And it's just like electric. Tom Brady, when he gets into that zone, he's marching down the field with a couple minutes left on the clock, and he won't just score one touchdown. He'll score 2 or 3. They haven't scored any all game. He'll do it all right at the end and it's like, oh my goodness. They were playing the New Orleans Saints, and we got to watch it 50-yard line firsthand. And I said, that takes a level of composure psychologically, and actually he elevates under pressure. And that was the biggest thing that I learned from him, was just really spend time on your psychological state. We talk about being a better leader, and all those things feed into that, but be self-aware of your psychology, good, bad, and ugly, and really understand it. Whether that's through a personal coach, whether that's through a psychologist like he did. You look at, there's a show called Billions, and they literally, with the big traders and the hedge funds, they would literally have a psychologist in there to work with these guys. And a lot of high-level executives, believe it or not, guys, do this.
Yeah.
There's executive psychologists out there. Leverage it, because when you're dealing with partners, when you're dealing with investors, when you're dealing with patients, you're going to get thrown a lot of stuff at you. You may have a patient die. You may have a patient write a scathing review or sue you. Guys, if you're not tough mentally, that can take somebody out. You could have embezzlement. It happens in a lot of practices. It's not a question of if, it's when. Something bad is probably going to happen at some point in your life. You're going to lose a loved one. You're going to, you may lose a relationship. You may lose a spouse. You may lose a child. Guys, bad things can happen in life. And you have a lot of people counting on you, from your patients, your team. But if you're not tough psychologically, you're gonna crash out. I saw it with my brother. I lost my brother. He was my hero, and he was ultra successful. He crushed it in business. I looked up to him. He was ultra successful. He always had the sports cars and the big houses, and he was the developer. And I wanted to be just like him. And he was kind of emulating that vision of my grandfather, run with the runners. He was picking up where he left off. And, Tim Grover, we had him, Michael Jordan's coach. He talks about generational curses. My grandfather, didn't make it too long, was ultra successful, didn't make it too long. My brother, ultra successful, didn't make it too long. I've got to break the generational curse. So we have to be aware of that. And I have 5 different coaches I work with at different levels, but you have to really work. Tom Brady, I think, hit that nail on the head. Psychological. Mark Wahlberg, different vantage point. Also very similar. Mark Wahlberg blew me away. I'm going to tell you why. Mark Wahlberg is ultra successful, guys. Business ventures galore. The guy's had a career beyond anything, and his past wasn't super great. Big faith, big in his faith. And Tony Robbins talks about it. It doesn't matter what you believe in, but he talks about it as race, psychological connection. Mark Wahlberg was probably one of the best guys I met. So genuine, so cool. And you could just tell that he has a very blessed life. Opportunities fall in his lap and he attracts that. That's just who he is. And he does a lot of great things to give back. Actually, when he was there, he had a family member that he was helping out. And that was one of the reasons why he did that event. He had a member, they were almost doing kind of like an intervention, and he was there to help a family member. And he had another guy with him who needed all his teeth done. And he said, can we set someone up for him? He was there. He was just there to give back. Like, he wasn't there for, the money. The money gets him there. But at the end of the day, you could just see a big connection to God. Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Ray Lewis had
What a guy.
major tough life with really close call at his life being over with what happened, for those that know the story. And he gave his life to faith in God. And I'm not saying, to be a holy roller, do what you believe in, but you got to have grace too in everything that you do. And there is part of that. And that's psychological. That's your team. That's you being a leader. That's you just being positive. That's one of the big things I learned from these guys is they're pretty deep at a spiritual level. They're pretty deep at a spiritual level.
That's amazing. It's so great to hear that because, sometimes when you look at people who are really financially successful, kind of make assumptions about, whatever. And the fact that spirituality or faith or whatever, gratitude, vibrating at a different frequency. I mean, those things are all, I think, so important. And everybody has different points of view, and, I respect all of that. But I do think there's power in like believing in something greater than yourself. And, that's a perfect testament to that.
Just believe you have favor.
Yeah.
Believe it. Right. Believe if you do good by other people, you make an impact and you help other people. Like, how often do you hear a story of somebody that goes all in, that's relentless, that never gives up, that puts their whole purpose around helping people?
Yeah.
Gets stones thrown at them, critics, but they still keep going and they still keep going. Guys, I don't know who you are, but most of those people end up changing the world in some way or the other.
Hell yeah.
Like,
Love it.
how are you going to beat that? How are you going to beat that? You can throw anything you want at individuals like that. And if you're relentless and you never quit, you can never fail. I mean, that's one of the things my dad taught me. My dad, I don't come from a lot of money, Jim. And my dad, I remember I wanted to quit playing football because I was so caught up in being a straight A student because my dad gave me $100 every time I got straight A's. And I was like, Dad, I don't know if I'm going to be able to play football and do this because I was up. And he said, look, go to practice, get your help. That's going to build those leadership characteristics. 100%. Go be a part of it, be involved. Don't, the kids that weren't involved in activities and sports, they got into trouble. We all know that. And because idle hands, create problems. And he trained me. He said, get up at 4 a.m. and study and do your homework in the morning before school. So I started doing that. I'd go to bed. I was so tired. Go to sleep. Wake up. He goes, but you don't quit. When I was coming out of college, student loan debt, like a lot of our dentists, not sure where I was going to go. I really hadn't got anything going here with Bart. When I started with Bart, I mean, I was making $300 a week. We weren't making any money. We were trying to figure this thing out as we go. I was working as in a telemarketing center at night. I was doing this. I was making $10 an hour with a $150,000 education, private school education. And it's like, what are you doing? You start to like feel. My dad called me up. My dad said, he goes, you make sure you have your food, your car, and your house. No matter if you have to work at McDonald's. He goes, but don't do what I did, which is, my freshman year in college, I flew out to Dallas, Jim. My godfather had passed away. And my dad, flew me out from University of Miami. I flew out to Dallas and I went to a building, and at the top of the building it was the name of the firm. And my name was on the building.
Wow.
Cora was on the building. I go, whoa, what's going on here? And it walks in and it's a huge architectural firm, multiple floors. Long story short, my dad was part of a firm. They were taking off. They hit rough economic times. My dad didn't have the reserves. My dad sold his rights to the name for $10,000. And we moved to Florida, and my dad took a government job, which is great. He's got a pension and everything. And he was never, but I always felt that maybe he regretted that a little bit. And I went in there, and go figure, not too long after my dad left, they landed the contract for every Blockbuster video in the United States.
Oh my God.
So complete different trajectory by a decision. My dad always was a great mentor with me. Is he said, look, no matter how tough it is, he goes, don't throw in the towel, don't give up, don't
Goes
give
right
up.
back to that relentless. And, I think it sounds like you learned that lesson early on. And I think that being involved in a lot of different things and being well-rounded are things that shape us and shape our character and teach us life lessons that we take, throughout our life, whether it's academics or sports. Like for us, I think we had both, or music. It doesn't matter what it is. Just be a relentless worker towards whatever it is you want to achieve. And man, Gerritt, I look at you and you're 42 years old. I mean,
I'll be 43 this month.
dude, you're so young and you've accomplished so much already. I mean, it's really extraordinary. I mean, again, researching you, I was pretty blown away. But, looking at that and all that you've done at such a young age already, I mean, what are you still chasing, man? Like what's next? What are you inspired and motivated to do with the rest of your life?
And my dream is, again, I'm ever grateful for Bart Nellinger, my business partner, my best friend, CEO. He made all this possible. None of this would be possible without him. I mean, and I want to take this thing to the moon. I still think we're just scratching the surface. I think there's so much opportunity in dental alone to really impact a lot of lives. I think a lot of people are afraid of, what the future may hold with robotics and AI and this and that. And I still think we're a little far out on all that. We're investing millions into AI, and it's a big part of our initiatives to make this easier and more predictable for the practices that we work with. But really my goal, my vision is to create an operating system where practices can become 100% independent from insurance, where they can do the type of dentistry they love. They can create generational wealth. The teams can also partake in that. I want to see team members becoming wealthy. Bart did something for me years ago. He wrote an article. He was featured in a 40 under 40 thing years ago. And one of the things that Bart wrote in there was his dream wasn't for him to make all this money, is he wanted me to make over $1 million a year. And that was one of his goals, when we weren't making anywhere near that. And, I want to see $1 million office managers. I want to see dental continue to grow. We look at dental, it's one of the biggest industries out there. We've seen it compared to like the NFL and MLB. Like dentistry's huge, guys. It's so massive. And it's not massive because, we're all just trying to take everybody's money. It's massive because there's a lot of people that need what it is we're doing. So my vision is I want to perfect this process. I want to help more practices. I want to see my team grow. I want to take this to a whole nother stratosphere as far as, let's make dental fun. Let's make it a cultural movement. Let's make it exciting. And, like the song I talked about at the front end, and I could cue that video. It's the one where it's Drake and like Justin Bieber comes in and he's like, I don't know if it's, I'm a pop star, not a doctor. Like, guys, you guys are rock stars. The dentists that I see really take it out to the next level, they're rock star leaders. Their energy, they become infectious. We've seen it in some of the courses. Like there's so much more here for us that I think we can tap into. So that's really my goal. And I want to create a system. I want this to become more of a predictable system. We have a lot of data over many years. I want to create this to where it's so predictable to where an office can really scale with a level of confidence and predictability. And really I want to see this industry continue to thrive and grow. And I want to see private practice continue to thrive and grow. And yeah, we'll help the corporate groups, and we'll help strategize with them as well, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs in those groups as well that have gotten to those groups. So it's dental as a whole, I want to see continue to grow and become more fruitful and more satisfaction for all. But big picture, what are we really looking at here? We're looking at, longevity. How do we live better, longer quality lives? And, how do we impact that? And part of that is the smile. It starts with that. We hear stories about patients that get their smile makeovers and they live an extra 10 years than they normally would because their quality of life, their diet, everything goes on, their confidence, their energy. There's been studies about, when people retire and they lose that drive. And what is the average person dies within 6 or 7 years of retiring? They get all the money and then they die on a beach,
Right. And lost their sense of purpose and growth.
And yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's really growth. And my big vision is to create something impactful enough that, I can create something truly generational for my kids as well.
That kind of leads me to the last question I have for you, Gerritt. I was going to ask about that. Like, as your kids get older and they look back on like what you built, what do you want them to really understand about that?
I think it's the same thing that my father has taught me, that Bart has taught me, that my mentors have taught me is you just live with passion, put your heart into it, and you never quit, and amazing things can happen. And you find yourself in very unique places when that happens. You find yourself in things that maybe you never even thought possible, whether it be an event, whether it be an experience, whether it be a vacation, things that you couldn't fathom years before. When I started this many years ago and where I was penciling it out and I couldn't see the financials working out ever, you just keep going and things fall in place. And, I want my kids to be able to continue with that. And, my ultimate dream would be for my kids to continue with that same type of mindset. And I still have a lot of work to do as well. So I'm in it, and to build more relationships with folks like you, Jim, that are pioneers that are looking to push the envelope and improve and really just help others. And, in our business as a marketer, there's a lot of marketing agencies. They're a dime a dozen. We're the biggest. So sometimes we can take a lot of critics. We can be villainized sometimes but we're also heroes to many. And I think that's the story some people don't always hear. And, we be a hero for somebody. I want for dentists out there, you get to be a hero for somebody. Like you said, really, what is my vision or dream? I want to be a hero for you guys. And if I can help change your trajectory, maybe give you a second chance, like that's really what I'm looking for. And if I can do that at scale, I got a feeling that will pay off pretty well, and not just monetarily.
Man. Hey, Gerritt, this has been great. I mean, I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of all the things that you've done and the way that you've done it. And I got a lot of value out of the conversation. I mean, I learned and I've been inspired. And I know that every dentist or every industry person who watches this is going to get value out of it. And they got to know you. They got to know you as a person beyond just all the great things that you've built. And I appreciate that. Thanks for spending some time with us.
We got some big things coming up, Jim. It'll be a lot of fun. Into this year, we've got a couple big announcements coming out that are gonna rock the industry. So,
Man.
fun leadership experience, iconic experiences, and there's gonna be a hero theme here coming up soon.
Oh man, that's a teaser.
I want you guys to really know that what you do does make a difference. And even though it might get hard sometimes financially, get a good plan, get a marketing strategy in place, get your team get your team dialed in. And it's not about micromanaging them. It's about getting them dialed in with your vision and creating the vision and going after it. And sometimes you just need a little jolt. Sometimes you just need to get a little re-energization. And the future's bright. We got a lot of great things ahead. So November 13th and 14th, we've got that into Dallas. We're going to be in July. We've got a lot of big things coming on the AI front. I know there's a lot of talk in AI. We've been investing significantly, millions and millions of dollars into doing something that's going to change the game for us. And we've got some amazing speakers coming. We've got some amazing entertainment. We've got some amazing partnerships and clinicians that are going to be joining. And one big thing that I want to end with, a lot of people, Jim, we've been doing this for now 17 years. We started in saving teeth. For years, people criticized us because we didn't do implants. Now people think all we do is implants and full arch. And I want to change that narrative of what full arch is, because we work with some of the biggest cosmetic players in the country, some of the biggest full mouth reconstruction players in the country. It's not all about yanking teeth and putting an all on X. It's about providing the best clinical outcome for our patients based on their needs. And when you do that, the money follows, your business scales. Full arch over the years, I think to some, and even to myself, has had somewhat of a negative connotation. Biggest challenge we see, overdiagnosis. Getting back to our roots is one of the themes of today's call, to more intimate events, but also understanding that full arch is not just all on X. Full arch, full mouth is really full mouth comprehensive dentistry. We started saving teeth with laser perio protocols. The success there was full mouth reconstructions that we saw inadvertently. We had no idea. It was massive. That's how we grew in the heart of the Great Recession. From ortho to, complex cases, to reconstruction, patients that want to keep their natural teeth, to high-end cosmetics.
Yeah.
The principles apply to all of these areas. And we've got a lot of great surprises for you guys this year. But I mean, we are working with some of the biggest names in cosmetic dentistry and reconstructive industry. My first areas that we integrated with Dawson Academy, Coyce. I won a big award for Dean Coyce's site, Coyce Dentistry, Pankey. We launched our education program at the Pankey Institute on Key Biscayne. I met my wife there. And that is our core roots. It's not one-dimensional treatment focused. It's how do we help more patients, providing custom bespoke solutions to help them live a better, longer life. That's what we're going for. And I'm excited for the industry. I think there's a lot of change in the industry right now. There's a lot of unknowns, but I can tell you guys, interest rates are coming down. Opportunities are happening within corporate dentistry, within private practice. There's a lot of things that are coming down the line. So don't quit, keep moving. Run with the runners. Let's make it happen.
Hey, man, I love it. That's a great note to close on. Thanks again, man. It's been a lot of fun. And everybody watching today, if you got any value out of this, please share this episode with somebody who could get value out of it as well. So have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.
Awesome.
Thanks.
See you soon. Take care.
This has been the Foundation Dental Podcast. If this conversation was valuable, share it with a colleague who's building something meaningful. For more leadership resources, visit foundationdentalalliance.com.